They say a mother's love knows no bounds. What they don't tell you is how that same boundless love can be the very thing that blinds you to betrayal. I stood in the gleaming lobby of Hartwell Innovations, watching employees in tailored suits hurry past with barely a nod in my direction. 10 years ago, this building was nothing but a dream scribbled on napkins at my kitchen table, while my son David explained his vision with eyes bright with ambition. 10 years ago, I believed in that dream enough to empty my retirement account. Today, I wasn't even permitted beyond the reception area without an appointment. Mrs. Hartwell? I'll need to see your visitor badge. The security guard approached with practiced authority, hand outstretched. It's Miss Reynolds. I corrected him, my wedding band gone for nearly 20 years now. David has my maiden name, and I don't have a badge because I'm not a visitor. The words tasted bitter on my tongue. I'm his mother. The guard's expression softened with pity. I understand, ma'am, but I still need to follow protocol. Mr. Hartwell has been very clear about security procedures. Very clear indeed. So clear that his own mother needed an appointment and a background check to see him. I clutched my handbag tighter, feeling the edge of the envelope inside, the one containing documents that David had forgotten existed. Documents that proved some foundations can't be casually discarded. What David didn't know, what he had conveniently forgotten in his meteoric rise to success, was that I had never transferred the deed to the 2 acres of prime commercial real estate where his gleaming corporate headquarters now stood, the land that had been in my family for generations. The land that remained, legally and irrevocably, mine. David was always a brilliant child, quick to learn, quicker to dream. When he was 10, he dismantled our microwave and reassembled it with improvements that almost burned down the kitchen. Instead of punishing him, I enrolled him in science camps and bought him electronic kits, stretching my teacher's salary to nurture the spark I saw in him. Mom, I'm going to invent something that changes everything someday. He'd proclaimed at 13, surrounded by circuit boards and soldering wire. And when I do, we'll never have to worry about money again. I promise. I had believed him. Even when his father walked out, claiming he needed space to breathe, which apparently meant space to start a new family with his dental hygienist, I never lost faith in David. I took on extra tutoring jobs, sold the jewelry Thomas had given me over our 15 years together, and even rented out our basement to ensure David could attend the engineering program at MIT. Are you sure about this? My sister Rebecca had asked when I told her I was liquidating my retirement fund for David's startup. What if it doesn't work out? What will you have left? I'll have the satisfaction of knowing I gave my son his best chance, I had answered with absolute conviction. Besides, he's including me as a founding partner. We're in this together. Together. The word haunted me now. The first 3 years were everything I had dreamed of. David and I worked side by side, my organizational skills complementing his technical genius. I handled the bookkeeping, office management, and kept the fledgling company running while he focused on innovation. We celebrated our first patent together with cheap champagne in plastic cups. When an investor finally noticed us, David had lifted me off my feet in a bear hug, both of us laughing and crying. We did it, Mom. This is just the beginning. I should have paid more attention to the subtle shift that came with that first major investment. The way David began introducing me as our office manager rather than my partner and mother. The way he started having meetings I wasn't invited to, the business dinners that somehow never had quite enough room at the table for me. The night before everything changed, we had dinner at my small house, the same house where I'd raised him, the house I'd nearly lost to foreclosure during those lean early years of the business. David arrived an hour late, distracted by his phone. Sorry, Mom. Crisis at the office. He barely looked up from his screen as he pecked my cheek. Our office, I corrected gently, setting down a plate of his favorite lasagna. He glanced up then, a flicker of something, annoyance, crossing his face before he smiled. Right. Our office. But the way he said it made my stomach tighten with inexplicable dread. I've been thinking, he said midway through dinner, about restructuring some things, making everything more professional as we scale up. I nodded encouragingly, not yet understanding that professional meant erasing the maternal fingerprints from his success story. That night, I dreamed I was locked outside a towering glass building, pounding on doors that no one would open, while inside, at a long conference table, my son signed papers without looking up. The locks were changed on a Tuesday. I arrived at our offices, our modest original space, not the gleaming headquarters that would come later, to find my key no longer worked. A security guard I didn't recognize opened the door. "Can I help you, ma'am?" "My key seems to be malfunctioning," I explained, confused. "Your name, please?" "Eleanor Reynolds. I'm the One moment." He checked his tablet. "Ah, Miss Reynolds, Mr. Hartwell said you'd be coming. You'll need to check in at reception for your new security credentials and employee badge." "Employee badge?" The words didn't make sense. "There must be some mistake. I'm a partner here." The guard's expression remained neutral. "I'm just following the new security protocols, ma'am. Everyone needs proper identification now." Everyone. As if I were just anyone. Inside, everything had changed overnight. New partitions, new faces, new logos on the wall where our original hand-drawn design had once hung. At the reception desk, since when did we have a reception desk? A young woman with immaculate makeup looked up at me with professional disinterest. "I need to see David," I said, bypassing the pleasantries. "Do you have an appointment with Mr. Hartwell?" "Mr. Hartwell. Not David. Not my son. I don't need an appointment. I'm his mother and his business partner." Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly. "I'll see if he's available, miss?" "Reynolds. Eleanor Reynolds." She made a call, speaking too quietly for me to hear. "Mr. Hartwell can give you 15 minutes. 5th floor, end of the hall." 15 minutes, from my son, in the company I had helped build. David's new office was 3 times the size of the space we'd once shared. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art on the walls, a desk that probably cost more than my car. He was on the phone when I entered, holding up one finger to make me wait, a gesture that would have been unthinkable just months before. "Mom," he said, finally setting down his phone, "I was going to call you today." To explain why my key doesn't work, or why I suddenly need an employee badge for the company I helped found? He sighed, looking momentarily like the boy who'd come to me with scraped knees and broken toys. "I was going to explain the reorganization. We've had to professionalize everything: corporate structure, reporting lines, security. And where exactly do I fit in this new professional structure?" "You're head of office administration. It's a vital role, Mom. All the operational stuff you've always handled." "Administration," I repeated, the word hollow. "Not partner, not co-founder." He leaned forward, hands clasped on his expensive desk. "Look, the investors are putting in serious money now. They need to see a professional executive team, people with credentials, MBAs, industry experience. And a 53-year-old former teacher doesn't fit that image." "That's not what I'm saying." "It's exactly what you're saying, David." He stood, circling the desk to stand beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Mom, I couldn't have done any of this without you. You know that. But this is business. The company's growing. We need to adapt." "We," I noted. "But I don't seem to be included in that we anymore." "You'll always be important to the company. To me." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. "I've got to take this. It's Wexler Group. Potential 8-figure investment." As he turned away to answer, something inside me crystallized, hard and sharp and clear. I was being sidelined, professionally set aside. My son, whom I'd given everything for, was relegating me to the edges of his success story. I turned to leave, my mind unusually calm despite the storm in my heart. At the door, I paused. "David," I said, my voice steady, "who owns the land the office sits on?" He half covered the phone. "What?" "The company leases it from. His brow furrowed. "From me," I finished for him. "The land is still in my name. Just a detail you might want to remember." As I walked out, I saw something flicker across his face, the first shadow of uncertainty in his new kingdom. The folder had gathered dust in my bedroom closet, tucked inside a hat box beneath winter scarves and old photo albums. "Property documents" was written across it in my neat handwriting. Inside was the deed to my father's land. 2 acres on what was once the outskirts of town, but was now prime commercial real estate as the city had expanded. When David had first proposed building there, it had seemed the perfect solution. The land was paid off, saving the fledgling company precious capital. I had offered it freely, proudly. "We should transfer the deed to the company," David had said at the time. "There's no rush," I'd responded. "Let's save on the legal fees for now. We can handle it when we're more established." That conversation had been 7 years ago. The paperwork had never been completed. In the rapid expansion, with investors and COCs and contracts and growth targets, it had simply been forgotten. By David, at least. I had just never thought it would matter. I spread the documents on my kitchen table, the same table where David had sketched his first designs. My reading glasses perched on my nose, I examined each page carefully. There it was, in black and white. I was the sole owner of the land where Hartwell Innovations' headquarters now stood. The building might belong to the company, but the earth beneath it was mine. "Ellie, are you sure you want to go down this road?" Rebecca asked when I called her. As an attorney, she understood the legal implications better than most. "I'm not trying to hurt him," I explained, surprised at how calm I felt. "I just need him to recognize what he's done, what we built together. And if he doesn't, then he'll learn that some foundations can't be ignored." Rebecca's law firm discreetly connected me with Marina Chen, a razor-sharp commercial property attorney who specialized in complex real estate disputes. "The situation is unusual but legally straightforward," Marina explained during our first meeting. "You own the land, there's no formal lease agreement with the company. They've been operating on an implied license that you, as the landowner, can revoke." "I don't want to shut down the company," I clarified. "I just want my position back." "My recognition." Marina nodded, her expression neutral but understanding. "Then we hold this in reserve, a contingency plan." Meanwhile, I continued reporting to work as head of office administration, watching as David's star rose. New partnerships, media appearances, industry awards. In photos, he stood alone or flanked by his executive team, young, polished professionals with impressive resumes and no history of changing his diapers or nursing him through chickenpox. I organized. I administered. I kept the operational gears turning. And I watched. One day, 6 months after my demotion, I overheard two executives talking outside the break room. "The 10th anniversary gala is going to be incredible," said one. "David's flying in clients from 3 continents. Full media coverage, retrospective video on the company's rise." "The invitations are gorgeous," replied the other. "Gold embossed, very exclusive." I waited 3 days for my invitation. When nothing arrived, I checked the event management software I still had access to. There I was, listed under staff, expected to help coordinate, but not attend as a guest. That evening, I called Marina. "I think I'm ready to discuss next steps," I said. 2 days later, a plan was in place, a careful strategy that balanced my legal rights against my desire not to destroy what David had built. What we had built. There was just one potential complication: Thomas, my ex-husband, David's father, who had reappeared in our lives once success had come. He had no legal claim to the land. It had been mine before our marriage and explicitly excluded from our divorce settlement. But his renewed relationship with David could complicate matters emotionally. "He could try to influence David against you," Rebecca warned when I confided in her. "Thomas was never good at playing the long game," I replied, "and neither is David. That's something they have in common." A trait I'd quietly compensated for throughout David's life: planning ahead, creating safety nets, thinking 3 steps ahead while they focused on immediate gratification. As the anniversary gala approached, I made my preparations with methodical care. Marina filed certain paperwork with the county. I gathered evidence of my contributions to the company. And I had something special made for the occasion: a small crystal plaque, elegant and understated, with words I hoped wouldn't be necessary. The night before the gala, I slept surprisingly well, drifting off with the thought that sometimes the most important foundations are the ones that remain invisible until they're tested. The Hartwell Innovations 10th Anniversary Gala transformed the company headquarters atrium into a cathedral of success. Crystal chandeliers hung from the soaring ceiling. Displays showcased the evolution of their products. Waiters circulated with champagne and artisanal canapés. I arrived early, not as a guest, but as the person ensuring the catering staff had everything they needed. The temperature was perfect, and no detail had been overlooked. My navy blue dress was elegant but understated, appropriate for someone meant to blend into the background. Eleanor. Thomas appeared at my elbow, distinguished in his tailored suit, silver hair perfectly coiffed. I didn't expect to see you here. I work here, I replied simply, though I'm surprised David found room for you on the guest list. He had the grace to look uncomfortable. We've been rebuilding our relationship. He's an impressive young man. Yes, he is. I saw no need to emphasize whose doing that had been. By 8 o'clock, the atrium was filled with investors, clients, media, and industry luminaries. Staff circulated with practiced invisibility. I watched David work the room, confident and charismatic. My son, my proudest creation and deepest heartbreak. At 9, the formal program began. A large screen descended from the ceiling for the retrospective video. The lights dimmed. Ladies and gentlemen, announced the MC, please join me in celebrating the remarkable journey of Hartwell Innovations and its visionary founder, David Hartwell. The video began with dramatic music and sleek graphics. David as a college student, David tinkering in a garage, David presenting at his first trade show. Then, a montage of the company's growth, new offices, expanding staff, product launches. Not once did my face appear. Not once was my name mentioned. When the lights came up, applause filled the atrium. David stepped onto the small stage, handsome and polished in his bespoke suit. Thank you all for being part of this incredible journey, he began. When I started this company 10 years ago with nothing but an idea and determination, I felt something shift inside me, the last tether of restraint giving way. When we started this company, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the suddenly hushed room. All heads turned. David froze mid-gesture. Mom? He said, his smile fixed. Thank you for all your hard work tonight. We can catch up later. I walked forward, calm and deliberate. I believe there's been an omission in tonight's narrative, David. A rather significant one. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I saw confusion on some faces, discomfort on others. Thomas took a half step forward, but stopped when I glanced his way. This is hardly the time or place, David said, his voice tight. On the contrary, this is exactly the time and place to acknowledge foundations. I moved to stand at the edge of the stage. 10 years ago, I wasn't just supportive of my son's dream. I was his first investor, with my entire retirement savings. I was his first employee, his first believer, and yes, his business partner. David's expression hardened. Mom, please. You've had too much champagne. I haven't had any, actually. I wasn't on the guest list. I smiled at the crowd. I'm sure that was just an oversight, like the oversight of not mentioning that this company was built on land that belongs to me. The murmuring grew louder. I saw one of the board members lean over to whisper to another. David's face flushed. This is inappropriate. Security. Before you have your mother escorted out, I interrupted calmly, you might want to consider how that would look to your guests and to the reporters present. He hesitated, trapped between anger and public relations. I'm not here to embarrass you, David. I'm here to correct an omission. I turned to address the crowd. Hartwell Innovations began in my kitchen. It was funded with my savings. Its first office was built on my land that, incidentally, remains in my name to this day. The silence in the room was absolute now. I could see David's CFO whispering urgently to their legal counsel. Miss Reynolds is correct, Marina said, stepping forward from where she'd been waiting near the back. As the company's recent property audit will confirm, Hartwell Innovations headquarters stands on land solely owned by Eleanor Reynolds. David's face went from flushed to pale. This is a minor administrative detail that means your mother could technically evict you with 30 days' notice, Marina finished pleasantly. Though that's not her intention. I nodded agreement. My intention, David, has only ever been to support you, to be recognized for my contribution, to be your partner, not your employee. For a moment, the teenage boy I had raised flickered across his face, caught in a lie, calculating his options, looking for escape. What do you want? He asked, his voice barely audible. I reached into my evening bag and withdrew the small crystal plaque I'd had made. I held it out to him. I want you to read this, aloud. He hesitated, then took it. His eyes scanned the text. His jaw tightened. Read it, I repeated gently. Please. David cleared his throat. Hartwell Innovations stands on foundations of innovation, integrity, and family, he read stiffly. Founded in 2013 by David Hartwell and Eleanor Reynolds. I watched his face as he continued reading the brief text, acknowledging my role as co-founder and my continued position on the board of directors. The words I had chosen were generous, focused on partnership rather than ownership. They credited him with the technical vision while acknowledging my organizational and financial contributions. When he finished, the room erupted in applause, relieved perhaps that the uncomfortable moment was resolving itself. "A lovely sentiment," said one of the board members, stepping forward with obvious relief, "and a reminder that success is rarely a solo journey. I believe this calls for a toast." As glasses were raised, I saw calculation replace shock in David's eyes. He was already adapting, adjusting his narrative to incorporate this new public reality. Always the quick thinker. In that moment, I recognized something of myself in him after all. "To Eleanor Reynolds," said the board member, co-founder of Hartwell Innovations. "To Mom," David amended, finding his footing, "without whom none of this would have been possible." As applause broke out again, he leaned close to whisper in my ear, "We'll talk about this tomorrow, all of this." "Yes," I agreed calmly, "we will. And David, Marina has the paperwork for my board appointment ready for signatures." His smile remained fixed, but his eyes flashed with a mixture of anger and just possibly respect. I hadn't expected victory to feel so complex, neither sweet nor bitter, but something more nuanced. As the evening continued, I moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and fielding questions with the same quiet competence I'd always brought to David's world. Several investors expressed surprise at learning the full story. A tech journalist asked for an interview. Thomas approached as the event wound down. "That was quite a performance," he said, something like admiration in his voice. "It wasn't a performance," I replied. "Just a correction." He studied me. "I always underestimated you, didn't I?" "Yes," I said simply. "You did." As the last guest departed, I found myself alone in the atrium with David. He looked tired, the polished veneer cracked to reveal the human beneath. "You could have ruined everything," he said finally, "but I didn't. That's the difference between us, David. I protect what I love, even when it hurts me." He looked away. "I never meant to erase you." "Didn't you?" I asked gently. "Isn't that exactly what successful children do sometimes? Erase the evidence of their origins to write their own mythology?" Something like shame flickered across his face. "What happens now?" I gazed up at the building around us, the physical manifestation of his dreams and my sacrifices. "Now we renegotiate our relationship. As equals." The boardroom at Hartwell Innovations looked different from the other side of the table. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the faces of people who, just weeks earlier, had barely acknowledged my existence. "The land transfer agreement protects the company's interests while formalizing Ms. Reynolds' position," the corporate attorney explained, sliding documents across the polished surface. "Ms. Reynolds will maintain ownership of 40% of the company's shares," added Marina, "with a permanent seat on the board." David, at the head of the table, nodded. His face revealed little, but the tension in his shoulders had eased since our confrontation. "And the public narrative?" "Co-founders with complementary skills," I supplied. "Your technical genius, my organizational foundation. A partnership that works." The story had already taken hold in industry circles. My interview with Tech Insider had generated unexpected interest, positioning me as the hidden architect behind Hartwell Innovations' operational excellence. Several women's business organizations had reached out about speaking engagements. After the meeting, David walked me to my car, a new habit that felt like an olive branch. "The Singapore investors were impressed by you," he admitted. "They said family companies have stronger foundations." I smiled at the word. "Foundations matter." He hesitated, then asked, "Would you have done it? Evicted us if I hadn't agreed?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I'd like to think I wouldn't have needed to." We stood in silence for a moment, mother and son, co-founders, and almost adversaries. "I'm speaking at the Women in Tech conference next month," I said finally, "about late-in-life entrepreneurship and invisible contributions." Something like pride flickered across his face. "You'll be great." "I know." The confidence in my voice surprised even me. As I drove away, I thought about foundations, the visible ones of concrete and steel, and the invisible ones of love, sacrifice, and sometimes necessary confrontation. I thought about the mother I had been, always putting David first and the businesswoman I was becoming at 58. The land beneath Hartwell Innovations would remain in my name, a reminder to us both that some things, once given, cannot be taken back, but they can be recognized, honored, and built upon. My phone rang through the car speakers. It was Rebecca. "How did the board meeting go?" she asked. "It went," I replied, "exactly as planned." "And David?" I smiled, watching the gleaming headquarters recede in my rearview mirror. "David is learning that strong foundations allow for growth, but only when they're properly acknowledged." Some lessons come late in life. Some victories arrive long after you've stopped expecting them. And some relationships, even those damaged by betrayal and ambition, can be rebuilt on foundations of hard-earned truth. After all, that's what family and business are ultimately about.